For those of y'all that are joining us today, I'd like to say welcome. I'm Leslie Olson, and we're going to start on our webinar. It's Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and I believe that start on time. So thank you for joining us today. I'd like to welcome each of you to the second webinar that we are hosting as a result of receiving a 2017-2018 Perkins Leadership Grant. Our mission with this webinar is to disperse as much information regarding 3P1, student retention or transfer, as we can to all of our Perkins stakeholders throughout the state of Texas. I am Leslie Keeling Olson, and with me is Leisha Smith. We are both located in Temple, Texas, at Temple College, which is classified as a mid-sized institution. Before we delve into the deep topic of 3P1, I'd like to share some background information regarding how this grant proposal has evolved from my initial vision to requesting a state leadership grant from the Higher Education Coordinating Board in 2015-2016 to what it is today. During that grant year, we were charged with the creation of a list of promising best practices and a catalog of performance improvement plan ideas, focusing only on 2P1, credential, certificate, or diploma, 3P1, student retention or transfer, and 4P1, student placement. In 2016-2017, we received a grant to help create regional partnerships and mentoring models. Our hope was that the project would lead to the adoption of a partnership models at a statewide level. This history leads us to this year's project, which focuses on intentional, intensive, and involved training and understanding of 2P1, 3P1, and 4P1 through webinars. Leisha and I, as well as our carefully selected webinar leaders that will be joining us in a few minutes, are shifting our attention from the last webinar we hosted that examined ways to improve the focus on 2P1, credential, certificate, or diploma, to explore how we can maximize our efforts to improve the Perkins Core indicated data for 3P1, student retention, or transfer. The catalyst that initiated this project now has spurred the mass changes was spurred by the mass changes we are seeing in the exodus of our senior Perkins leaders from our field, many from retirement, but other times individuals were moving up into administration or were pursuing administrative opportunities with other institutions. As a result, we have a major influx of new Perkins Basic Grant Directors coming into Perkins and joining what I call our Perkins family. Please know, although you are getting to know us in this webinar, I would be remiss if I did not recognize our Perkins Program Directors, Donna Carlin, Mindy Nobles, and Dwayne Hilliard, which some of us have joined us today. I will do anything to help you with Perkins, but I never want to supersede or override their authority and position. I know we cannot exist without their expert guidance, support, and direction. Let's start by looking at some information we realized in our last webinar. In our last webinar, we asked the participants to answer a poll on their Perkins experience. We found out that 41% of the audience had worked in the field for less than a year. 9% of the audience had worked in the field for 1 to 2 years, and 23% had worked in the field for 3 to 5 years. This means that 73 of the people we polled in the audience have worked in the field for less than 5 years. This data validates my initial reasoning for pushing to provide these webinars now. I want to make a concerted effort to preserve as much knowledge from our seasoned professionals as possible, so we can then share our knowledge, understanding, processes, and promising best practices with the new Perkins Basic Grant Directors, or help other Perkins Basic Grant Directors fine-tune their understanding of Perkins. For those of you who are relatively new to this field, I want to extend a welcome to you, and I hope this Perkins Leadership Project is helpful to you both in the middle of your current grant and as you progress and prepare for the next grant. Welcome to what I call our Perkins family. As you all know, it takes a while to understand the specifics and nuances of each core indicator. Last month, we focused on 2P1, credential, certificate, or diploma. However, this month, we progress forward and focus on 3P1, student retention or transfer. In April, we will shift our focus to 4P1, student placement. Before this project is finished, we will have aired 3 webinars that discuss each of these indicators in the greatest depth that we can possibly achieve. Once again, let's regain our focus and shift the attention to the discussion to the specific Perkins Core indicator at hand today, 3P1, student retention or transfer. Once more, I want to state clearly that this webinar focuses solely on 3P1. I want to assure you that great consideration has been placed on ensuring that the perspectives of both a senior Perkins person as well as someone who might be brand new to Perkins are represented. Yes, we are very aware that at times all of the core indicators overlap and seem to interrelate, but our objective with this webinar is to focus on 3P1. If you have not already done so, please read the quote on the slide. Success at anything will always come down to this: focus and effort, and we control both. When I saw this quote by Dwayne Johnson, I thought to myself, this quote represents what we're trying to attempt to accomplish with this 3P1 webinar. We want to control both the focus and the effort we place on trying to ascertain that CT students retain at our institutions or they transfer to four-year institutions. So we will start by looking at how we can concentrate our efforts on 3P1. Before I dive into defining 3P1, Leisha will introduce the audience to some of our webinar tools and introduce the webinar leaders.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm happy to tell the audience about the polls that we're going to see throughout this presentation, and I would love to introduce our webinar leaders. Throughout this webinar, we will insert different polls for you to answer. When a poll pops up, click on or enter the answer that best represents your thoughts or what you think would be the majority voice for your institution. Please bear with us during these polls as we pause and wait for everyone to answer. It takes a few minutes for us to release the poll results so you can see them. To give you an example, we will launch 2 polls for you now so we can get a better understanding of our audience and participants in this webinar. Poll number 1. Is this your first live webinar with us, or did you participate in the 2P1 webinar? As you can see, you have a few options that you can choose, and most of you are already doing it. Good job. All right. So for the majority of you, well, 54%, this is your first webinar with us, and then over 40% of you have participated in 2P1 either by listening to it or participating in it. The second poll question is a repeat from the first webinar, but we think it's a very important question. What is your Perkins experience? Additionally, we found out that many of you have questions at the end of the webinar, so if you have questions, please stay online at the end of the presentation and we will provide you answers, or we will try to find you answers to your questions. Notice that on the Go To Webinar menu floating on your screen, there is an area to ask questions. You may have to click on the Expand Collapse button to be able to see the question text box. Now I'd like to tell you how we selected our webinar leaders, and I'll introduce you to them. The first step in the process of selecting our webinar leaders was mining through the data to identify colleges that had successfully met the state performance target for the last 5 years. Once the schools were identified, we started soliciting volunteers from these institutions to act as Perkins experts. Our primary goal was to select leaders and experts in the field whose colleges had attained success statistically, but we also wanted the people representing their campuses to come from different size schools as well as different regions from the state. We then started reaching out to individuals who we thought could help us provide our audience solid information and a better understanding of 3P1. Now that you know how these individuals were selected, I would like to introduce you to the 3P1 webinar leaders. We selected 2 Perkins Basic Grant Directors based upon their experience, and they are Dr. Catherine O'Brien and Ms. Michelle Freeman. The next 2 Perkins Basic Grant Directors were selected based on their college's history with the Perkins Core indicators of either meeting or exceeding their state targets, and they are Ms. Susan Cannon and Dr. Terry Walker. The Perkins Basic Grant Director who has seen significant improvement of her core indicator data throughout the last 5 years is Ms. Ebony Dennis. To get the discussion started, I'm going to pass the microphone to Dr. Olson, who will introduce us to the world of 3P1, student retention, or transfer.
Hi again. We've already presented a webinar in 2P1, and in that webinar, we answered the questions about the who, what, where, and how of 2P1. In this webinar, we're going to focus our efforts on better understanding 3P1. If you attended the last webinar, I gave you a brief insight about my tenure at Temple College. That being said, you all know how much I love working with Perkins, my Perkins family across the state, and CTE. For this session, I want to share with you what I think is mutual confusion and frustration about retention. I've been teaching criminal justice for the last 16 years. Many do not realize that I still have classroom responsibilities at Temple College, But please know, I do not consider this teaching assignment to be a burden. On the contrary, I view the ability to teach as a privilege and a blessing. Continuing to teach keeps the core indicators constantly in perspective and allows me to see things from the CTE instructor's perspective. Please know, every fall, I always look forward to the new faces and students I will get to know, but I always have a list of students that I wonder about and ask these questions in my mind. What happened? Where did they go? Why aren't they here? Why didn't they come back? To put it into the correct Perkins perspective and terminology, what happened that Temple College was not able to retain them as a CTE student? Once again, we are starting with the definition that is included in the Basic Grant Request for Applications, also known as an RFA, and in your institutional Perkins Basic Grant web portal. In this slide, I have copied them exactly how they look in both areas. The top picture is found in Appendix F of the RFA, and the bottom picture is how it will look in your web portal. It is interesting to note that most people will say that 3P1 is about retention, and they forget to add the transfer piece. I think that many times people miss this vital piece because people perceive retention to be more significant than transfer. If a student transfers, they are progressing along. However, if a student does not transfer or does not retain with us, then what happened and how do you remove those barriers in progress? I want to make note that retention and transfer is a fall-to-fall comparison. There are many institutions that see decreases in enrollment or look at comparisons from fall to spring, which can be a contributing factor, but the measure is different than internal aspects. Additionally, we usually compare enrollments, but in this case, it focuses on CTE concentrators, not just college-wide enrollments. 3P1 retention and/or transfer success is one of the 3 core indicators used to determine how reallocation dollars are distributed. When talking to other Perkins Basic Grant directors across the state, you will hear many say they struggle with retention, and you can see from the graph above that we started with a plateau, an increase, and then a 4-year downward turn. If only we could determine what made such a significant decrease from 2014 to 2015 and then continued on that upward trend. As a state, we met the target in 2009 and 2010 when the target was 64 and 65, as indicated by the blue dots above. The black dot indicates there is no target data listed on the performance indicator link. When the target increased, we did not meet the target from 2010 to 2015, as indicated by the red dots. We saw significant release when the target was lowered to 63 in fiscal year 2016, as represented by the yellow dot. However, 36% of campuses and institutions are still below the target, and another 13% are only slightly above the target. Before we talk about this comparison, let me point out something on the graphs. Please note, the graph on your left, which represents the state's performance trend from 2009 to 2016, includes a range of 61 to 67, whereas the graph on the right represents the state targets trend from 2009 to 2016. But the date ranges from 61 to 71, so please note there is a slight difference between the two measures. That being said, you will notice that in fiscal year 2009, the state target was 64 and steadily rose through 2015 when the target was 69. In 2016, the target was renegotiated by the coordinating board and lowered to 63. Although the lowering helped significantly, I believe we cannot rest or rely on that option. Please note, the RFA states on page 6, the Perkins Basic Grant Program supports awarded applicants in educating students who enroll in CTE courses and programs in preparation for high-skill, high-wage, or high-demand occupations. The success of an awarded applicant in educating these students will be measured by its ability to meet state targets for each of the 6 core indicators negotiated with the United States Department of Education, Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education. When you hear people say OCTAE, this is who they're talking about. And this is for the Perkins Basic Grant Program. If you are new to Perkins, I hope that this discussion gives you a better understanding when we talk about negotiated targets or renegotiated targets. To put it all into perspective, when the target was 69 in fiscal year 2015, only 5 institutions or campuses met the target, while 33% of institutions and campuses were below the 90% mark. And to add another dimension not reflected in the slide, in fiscal year 2014, only 2 institutions or campuses met the actual target. Again, we saw significant release in fiscal year 2016 when the targets were lowered, but I don't think we can hope the target stays at 63 or lowers more. For this reason, 3P1 at this time should really be where we focus a significant portion of our statewide efforts, but we want to make sure to focus individually too. To begin the process of understanding retention in relationship to Perkins, let's answer the following poll. We're pausing here just a little bit. We have about 44% of our attendees that are answering. We're at 63% of our attendees that have answered. It appears this time about only 75% of people have voted, but I'm not going to wait too much longer, so I don't want to hold it up. I'm going to go ahead and close out this poll and share the results with you. It's interesting to note that you have 60% that have dedicated, almost 40% above or around the 40% mark for what is retention. So that being said, we're going to go ahead, and I would now like to pass the presentation over to Dr. Catherine O'Brien.
Good afternoon. I'm Catherine O'Brien, and I have served in community colleges as either a faculty member or an administrator for 35 years. 15 of those years have been spent working with Perkins, including 8 years as the director of a Perkins Basic Grant. Since retiring, I've returned to the classroom, but I continue to be involved with career and technical education. To improve the data in Perkins, you need to focus on your institution's data. Your best source for data is the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and we've circled their link at the bottom of the slide. And you should also identify the person within your institution who submits data via the CBM reports to the coordinating board. That person may be your registrar, or it may be someone within your institutional effectiveness office. That is the person who can sit down and help work with you and explain the data. When you are reviewing data, remember that the data is several years old. For example, the 2016-2017 data highlighted at the top of the chart is based on reports that were submitted in 2015-2016. If you notice that you are in the red on one of your years, but the next year you turn out to show up as in the green on your target or on the actual, then you might want to review your strategies for several years to see what you may have done that made a difference. And rather than change strategies every year, consider holding them steady for a few years until you can see what is working and what isn't. Notice that the data, it comes from 4 CBM reports that were also used in 2P1. That is CBM 001, CBM 002, CBM 009, and CBM 00M, and the inclusion of something called CB 116. The definitions for the CBM reports can be found in the CBM reporting manuals at the coordinating board. This is a good resource for learning what goes into the data and is submitted to the state, and it also tracks changes as they may occur in those manuals over time. CBM 001 captures all of the students who are in your classes on the official census date, and it tracks these students to the completion of their course. CBM 002 reports any students who have attempted credit hours in approved courses on that census date. If the student is in CBM 001 and in CBM 002, then that student is being tracked to completion, graduation, or into the workplace. CBM 009 tracks the number of degrees and awards, both degrees and certificates that your institution reports. For Perkins purposes and for our discussion, these are level 1 certificates at 15 to 42 semester credit hours, level 2 certificates at 30 to 51 semester credit hours, and Associate of Applied Science degrees at 60 semester credit hours. The following information is very important in understanding your data. The students are not tracked across years as you might think of traditionally tracking a cohort, but the students are only tracked within that single Perkins year. For example, if you have a cohort of students at your institution who take 2 years to complete an ADN nursing program, then you would logically track those students over 2 years. However, data for 3P1 is tracked only for that year. The coordinating board tracks the number of students who enroll in the fall and account for the students who transferred to another institution, who left the institution as the result of graduation, as in 2P1, or left the institution for employment. 3P1 looks at the students who did not graduate during that year and what happened to them. In other words, they look for students who were not trained. If a student stops out of your institution, the coordinating board looks for those students at other institutions. If they are, then they are no longer part of this cohort. If the student returns at a later date, they become part of a new cohort. In other words, the students at your institution every fall are treated as a new cohort, whether they really are new to your program or are continuing from the previous fall. CBM 00M reports the Occupational Skills Achievement Awards, formerly called the Marketable Skills Achievement Awards. That is, those awards from 9 to 14 semester credit hours or 144 to 359 contact hours in continuing education. Keep in mind that 3P1 is about retention, but also about employment. So what happens if the coordinating board cannot find the student in the workplace? CB 116 is a process more than a report. Since 2005-2006, the automated student and adult learner follow-up system attempts to track students who attend Texas public community and technical colleges after they leave your institution. The coordinating board matches Social Security numbers of these students with Texas Workforce Commission unemployment insurance wage records, with federal databases of civil employees, and in the public higher education enrollment database. Incarcerated students enrolled in academic programs, as well as students with invalid Social Security numbers, are excluded from the cohort. If a student graduates in spring of 2016, the coordinating board looks for that student in the various databases until fall of 2018. Thereafter, the coordinating board sends notification to the institutions regarding a list of students who were not found. These institutions are not required to look for students, although it is strongly recommended that they do so. But keep in mind that these students have been out of your institution for well over a year. The types of students who are not found include students who have transferred to colleges outside of Texas, who were working for companies in Texas that are not covered by the unemployment insurance wage data, students who were self-employed, students who were incarcerated after exiting the program, students who were employed outside of Texas, students who are truly unemployed and not pursuing higher education, or students who are deceased. This page shows you the clearinghouse that you can go to see what programs your institution offers. This is where you check to see what you have in your catalog, your database, the Texas Higher Education Electronic Submissions portal, and the clearinghouse. Are all of these matching? This is the page that your registrar uses to report the awards to the state. So, some frequently asked questions. Is it really worth our effort to look for these students in the CBM 116? Yes. This effort improves your data when you find an additional student to add to the list. Do you have an example of who these students might be? A student, for example, who earned a cosmetology degree, completed a license, but who is renting a chair in a salon is considered self-employed. That student may not be showing up in the work databases. This student is one you might be looking for. Who are the students that I look for? You want to look for former students who are employed, self-employed, or serving as volunteers in nonprofit organizations, or who are pursuing additional education. In other words, you're helping to track down students that the state has not been able to find. How do I find these students? You can do this by updating contact information regularly while the students are still with you. That is, every semester. Consider getting a permanent address, perhaps a parent's address, if they are younger students. Older students don't tend to move around as often as the younger students do, but younger students you may be able to find through their parent's address. Also, consider setting up an alumni Facebook page for your students. It not only helps you stay in touch with your graduates, but it allows them to find a way to pass along job prospects to their colleagues. Thank you, and now I'd like to introduce my colleague Michelle Freeman from Tyler Junior College.
Thank you, Dr. O'Brien. Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Freeman, and I work for Tyler Junior College. I am one of the seasoned veteran Perkins Basic Grant Directors that Leslie referenced in the introduction. I have been the Perkins Data Grant Coordinator for 7 years, with 14 years total in the Perkins world. Recently, we created the position of a CTE Retention Specialist. This position implements and facilitates all of the retention strategies for our CTE students. I am going to share some best practices that we have put into place here at TJC to help focus our efforts on retaining our CTE students. Research is clear that one of the key strategies for retention is the development of a relationship between faculty or staff and the student. The CTE Mentoring Program connects students with resources and opportunities that support and encourage them to succeed and ultimately graduate. From registration through graduation, students are counseled on opportunities to become engaged in the college community and excel in their program of study. The program was created with the goal of sustaining a community of scholars who will not only receive their diploma, but also gain the skills needed to succeed beyond graduation. The CTE Mentoring Program is comprised solely from faculty and staff who volunteer their time. These volunteers will go through a required 4-hour online training program that was developed in-house and funded with Perkins. We have volunteers from all areas of the college. CTE and academic faculty, administrative, financial aid, campus police, distance education, and HR are some examples of the diversity of volunteers that are mentors. Mentors and students are required to meet face-to-face once a month and communicate in some form on a weekly basis. This requires about an hour a month of time invested in helping a student. One question that a mentor may have is, how much time does this take? Approximately 1 hour per month. You may always invest more time if you would like or as needed. Also, one question that a mentee may have is, how long will I have my mentor? If you are in RISE, your mentor will be with you for the semester. However, you can extend that time if you both agree. If you are not in RISE, you will have your mentor throughout your attendance or until both people agree to terminate the mentorship. The Learning Community Cohort Program began with 2 core classes, English and Speech, teaching within the context of a CTE program. Another model which we are now providing is to bring a 3rd core class, Algebra, into our Survey and Mapping class. The math section of the Survey and Mapping program has proven to be a more difficult one for the Survey and Mapping students to complete. This program allows for the core content to be taught in a way that is more relevant to the students' career aspirations and career goals. For the fall 2017 semester, we started the CTE Student Success Center. This tutoring center is a separate entity from the college's tutoring center. It is housed and provides focused peer tutoring within the School of Professional and Technical Programs. Our focus was to pull the CTE classes that had the highest D, W, F, and I's. We started with accounting for the business management classes and programming and gaming simulation development. The student tutors are hired at the beginning of the semester based on a professor recommendation, completion of the course with a letter grade of an A, and completed application. We would like to see and track what other institutions across the state have in place regarding tutoring specifically for CTE students. So, does your institution have a tutoring program that specifically targets only CTE students? And we'll take a moment for everybody to be able to answer that question.
We're currently at 61% of our people voted. I'm waiting just a second more to see if a couple of other people still vote. Michelle, we're at 72, so I'm going to go ahead and 78. I'm going to go ahead and close it and share it for you.
Okay.
There you go, ma'am. It's actually 50-50.
Awesome. RISE is a non-credit course for students on academic suspension who must enroll in the course and complete with a C or better in order to continue their studies at TJC. Failure to take and complete the course will result in the student having to wait 12 months to re-enroll in classes. Focus of the class is for the student taking responsibility, setting goals for their academic and career options, developing soft skills, and developing the ability to work in teams, and fostering basic classroom academic skills such as effective reading and writing for college. Students are also required to be a part of the CTE mentoring program. This program was first incorporated into the class for the fall 2017 semester. Results of the CTE mentoring program being integrated into the RISE course have been astonishing. Before, at least 1/3 of the students did not pass the class. Last semester, we only had 1 student who did not pass. Our CTE retention specialist pulls data along with faculty referrals for students who have received a DFW for their midterm grade or a DFW or I for their final grade. Contact is then made with the student through email, phone, or a face-to-face meeting. At that time, an action plan is developed and includes finding tutors, setting personal goals, providing access to career planning, discussing strategies dealing with personal and family issues, and teaching time management skills. Results are based on the student's effort, but we believe by working together we can work to minimize any obstacles that might come between the student and his or her completing the program. One consistent factor that our CTE retention specialist is hearing from non-returning students is they didn't feel like they belonged. We believe that staying focused and putting our efforts with faculty and staff in the classroom and the initiative from the student will have an inspiring effect on increasing student retention and/or transfers. From the student's perspective, why is it important to form a relationship between the student and faculty member? increased motivation and investment, increased retention, and it provides a sense of security and comfort, a feeling of I belong. I would like to hand it over now to my colleague Susan Cannon from Collin College.
Thank you, Michelle. Hi there, I'm Susan Cannon from Collin College. I was a grant accountant here at Collin for 2 years and moved to project management of grants in the fall of 2016. I took on the job of Basic Grant Director of the Perkins Grant in January of 2017. So like many of you, I only have about a year of Perkins experience under my belt. Collin College is a large institution with over 27,000 credit students enrolled for spring 2018 as of our census date. Collin College has long been an institution with a well-developed transfer-out mentality. While this is an advantage for students whose goal is indeed to transfer to a university, this mentality resulted in some barriers for career and technical education, or CTE, students. Many residents of Collin County, as well as some faculty and administrators at the college, felt Collin College was to be a place where students went for an inexpensive and effective way to knock out the first 2 years of college close to home. After finishing their core classes, learners would then transfer out to a traditional 4-year college to complete a bachelor's degree. However, recent administrators have been much more interested in the CTE needs of the community. Due to issues meeting 2P1 and 4P1, the college administration became increasingly concerned about retaining students through to a completion of credential. The primary way Collin College is moving past retention barriers is increasing individualized contact with CTE and other learners. The development of special programs was the first part of the plan, and 3 areas of contact became the focus of this initiative. Firstly, we focused on individualized academic planning and career counseling. Secondly, we developed career centers. And lastly, we purchased and promoted new technology which encourages learners to interact with advisors. The college currently has 5 program career coaches, 1 veterans transition support specialist, and 4 career centers. The original initiative began in CTE healthcare programs with one-on-one academic planning and career advising. This worked so well, the initiative was expanded college-wide, and 5 program career coaches have been hired to help CTE learners devise appropriate plans for completion. I'm going to give a little more detail on the program career coaches in just a minute. The career centers open to assist CTE learners and other students with the pursuit of careers in various career and technical industries. These plans include advising on which classes and degree plans will provide the skills necessary to find these jobs. We're going to introduce a poll now. You may choose multiple answers if needed. Do you have staff that deals with individual student success at your college? And if so, what are their titles?
Susan, we actually have the poll question didn't code into the system. So for a second, I'm actually unmuting everybody, or trying to. Oh, I still can't do that. So we'll move on and we'll actually send this poll out to everybody else, okay? Susan.
Sorry about that. We're going to send it to y'all each individually, I think.
Yes.
Okay. Collin College has hired 5 program career coaches over the past year, using Perkins grant funds to cover salary, as this initiative is still a pilot program. The goal is to move these positions to hard money as success is proven over time. In our grant application, we tied the program career coaches to all 5 of the core indicators, with several measures in each one to show how Perkins funds were being carefully managed. Examples from 3P1 are as follows. CTE program career coaches will develop streamlined co-op and internship processes and implement it. CTE program career coaches will develop a CTE student success tracking and intervention plan involving classroom data, student participation records, length of time until completion, and any barriers to success. And CTE program career coaches will implement student success tracking and intervention plans to assist CTE students in developing competencies required to make informed decisions concerning career goals. Actually, I think this is a different slide. The impetus behind the hiring of program career coaches was the dropping numbers of CTE learners enrolling, remaining, completing, and finding jobs in workforce programs. Collin College wanted to improve these numbers by one-on-one contact with learners. We have 40 workforce programs, so each career coach covers 8 programs and reports to an associate dean rather than a program lead. Per one of the career coaches, his contact began with a list of student emails generated from student enrollment data of all students who declared a workforce major for which he was the coach responsible. This was approximately 2,600 emails. He then followed up by contacting them personally. As of February 2018, all of the program career coaches are using Zogotech, which is a data warehouse software system, which can generate lists of students or give individual student records depending on query parameters. I realize I work for Collin College and we have a relatively large Perkins grant budget, but this is just one idea of many that could be implemented in many different ways using various funding means. Collin College is joining the initiative to promote workforce programs for learners. Data indicates these jobs are no longer just for those. I think I'm 2 slides ahead.
Okay, I'm looking at on my system where you're at redefining institutional focus, tailor-made student contact, and I'm seeing the notes match on our notes. What slide are you seeing?
We still see the one for the first one, redefining institutional focus. Collin College excels at preparing transfer students.
Oh, so it's not progressing somehow through.
Oh, yeah, it's not progressing. Let me see if I can. There. Does that fix it?
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you for letting me know.
Okay. Collin College is joining the initiative to promote workforce programs for learners. Data indicates these jobs are no longer just for those who cannot afford or do not want to complete 4-year degrees. These workforce opportunities have both high wages and high placement rates. This speaks to the 60 by 30 Texas State Initiative, and we bring this out in our Perkins measures and budget in our application. The decision was made by the administration to focus on high-touch pieces in relation to learners in the CTE programs. This provides students with many opportunities to receive personalized attention. The college offers individualized academic planning through the 5 program career coaches, the Veterans Transition Specialist, and a very structured coaching program that provides faculty with training and resources to effectively assist students in determining how to pursue academic goals that will support career aspirations. The college also offers individualized career planning through the 5 program career coaches and the career centers. When I was developing the slides, it occurred to me some of you would have questions about how we garnered support for the retention initiatives here at Collin College. Firstly, we needed administrative support, and this was done using historical Perkins data to show our met and unmet performance improvement evaluation plans, known as PEEPs, emphasizing the impact the unmet PEEPs would have on continued Perkins funding. Once upper-level administrative support was secured, college-wide development of potential ideas to solve the unmet PEEPs began. Also, I thought you would be interested in how we let students know about these new retention initiatives, which is by reaching them at all possible online student access points, by word of mouth, and by the use of print media. The following 3 slides are some of the print media we are using here at Collin College. This first one is a wall mural from Collin College to promote CTE workforce programs. Please note the Texas Genuine logo in the bottom left corner. Per the 2017-18 RFA of the Perkins Grant from the Coordinating Board, Section 7.4.7, all marketing outreach materials bought with the grant funds must incorporate Texas Genuine. There's also a link to the information needed and the Texas Genuine logo within that section of the RFA. We have another example of a wall mural, and these wall murals are about 30 feet by 10 feet. I had not put that, but they are huge, so very attractive as students are walking by. Then the third slide are retractable banners which promote the workforce programs. They also have the Texas Genuine. These are 3 feet wide by 8 feet tall on retractable poles. I would now like to hand off to my colleague, Dr. Terry Walker.
My name is Terry Walker from College of the Mainland, and I have about 20 years of community college experience. And I've worked in one of the largest districts in the state and 2 medium rural institutions. Additionally, I've been an Achieving the Dream coach for colleges in Illinois, and with all of my experience across the nation, it has led me to a couple of conclusions. One is that community colleges are not as unique as we'd like to think we are, and we all have similar issues to overcome. As you've already heard today, there was a significant number of students, colleges that failed to meet 3P1 measure until it was lowered. And then from an institutional perspective today, I'm going to talk to you about 4 control factors that can help influence and improve indicator 3P1. Having an engaged faculty, which is a key component that that colleges succeeding in the benchmarks have for any retention effort. If we take a moment to think over the course of a semester, who has the most consistent interaction with the student? And we can tell that it would be the faculty, because they often wear many hats for our students. They act as advisors, as mentors, as faculty recruiters. And so the power of faculty-student interaction and connection cannot be underestimated. Faculty tend to have strong relationships with business and industry as well, and they can connect students to the local workforce. And we'd like to introduce a poll for you. How much impact do you think faculty have on retention? I'll give you a few minutes.
We only have about 67 participating, so just a couple more moments while people finish up the poll.
Okay.
Terry, it seems we've stopped like at 78%, so I'm going to go ahead and close and share it for you. Oh, 83% voted.
Okay. Very good. And like we would think that most of us believe that faculty-student interaction is very impactful. Thank you. We're ready for the, yes, okay. Being intentional about student engagement can also increase retention and transfer. And with intentional engagement today, I'm going to talk about 3 different areas: block schedules, cohorts, and pathways. Building a block schedule for 5 of our programs helped with retention. It has allowed for students to be able to plan their lives around a set schedule for attending the college for an extended period of time. And if we can guarantee, for instance, for the next couple of years, what their college schedule is going to be, it's easier for our students to work around that schedule. We know cohorts provide a powerful social support for retention rates, and retention rates are higher in programs and that progress as a group. Most of our workforce programs have built their AS and certificates in stackable degrees and the pathway model. And currently, we're evaluating and reviewing all of the CT programs to make sure that the pathway to employment or transfer is appropriate. And so we'd like to ask, what % of your faculty would you classify as engaged?
Sorry, I'm waiting just a couple more minutes. We have 67% that have voted so far.
Very good.
Chair, I'm going to go ahead and close it off for you at 67%, okay?
Okay. And so we have just over 60%, somewhere between 40 and 60% think our faculty are engaged. I'm ready for the next slide. We would like to talk finally about wraparound supports. And there are three that come to mind that have helped when we've looked at our data. Ensuring that students are applying for financial aid and scholarships has helped increase retention. And we've tried to accomplish this by having advisors and financial aid staff make presentations to classes. And our business partners provide scholarships for high demand programs for students majoring in for our big program like P-TECH and nursing. The students succeeded and were retained when we added program-specific tutoring, especially in the technical math, and student clubs such as our Process Technology Club. We have a process technology program here at College of the Mainland, and that is a very active club, and they help connect students to programs and to the college. This club does fundraising, service learning. They take tours of the area plants, and that connects students. It also connects students with alumni. There are many ways to engage students, but I've just chosen three today that seem to have helped our retention. I'm going to turn it over to Ebony from Kilgore College next.
We are unfortunately having some technical difficulties, and I'm very hopeful that Ebony might be able to jump here in a second. She was on with us earlier, but the software seems to be giving us a little bit of trouble. So, not to delay, and Ebony, I'm gonna read your notes, but give you full credit for everything that's presented today. If at any point you come in, don't hesitate to just jump over, and I will back off. Ebony, in introducing you to Ebony, Ebony is with Kilgore College with approximately 5,000 students. It is a student-centered institution characterized by excellence in teaching and learning with a campus in Kilgore College and an extension campus in Longview. Ebony is the Director of Institutional Student Support at Kilgore College, and she's entering her 4th year as a Perkins Basic Grant Project Director and her 13th year in support services and her 5th year as an adjunct instructor. Throughout her years in higher education, she often wondered why some students never returned to school after the fall semester. So she's given us some challenges that students face each semester. Each semester, as students make the decision to enroll in college, there's an overwhelming desire to achieve the dream of an advanced degree. However, for many, the desire to make that dream a reality is diminished because of one or more challenges in or outside of the classroom that causes some of the students to leave college prematurely. Some of those challenges are 1, work and family commitments. Students are unable to balance work, family, and school commitments due to the overwhelming demands of each. 2, academic struggles. Students lack college readiness, academic skills, the understanding of course content, the maintaining of a high degree of motivation. 3, financial issues. Students cannot afford the tuition and fees, i.e. testing, orientation, lab, other miscellaneous fees, parking tickets, etc., textbooks and other learning supplies, gas to commute to school and between training sites, childcare fees, including after-school care. 4, personal issues, illness, death of a loved one, or incarceration. And 5, lack of parental family support, emotional, instrumental, tangible, and informational support. And 6, the culture of the institution. Students sometimes struggle with the surface culture of higher education, i.e. class sizes, amount of homework assigned, methods of teaching, degree requirements, and the deep culture of higher education. Examples: shared beliefs, attitude, norms, rules, opinions, and expectations. The various challenges faced by our students lead to many discussions as to how our school could improve our retention and student success efforts. To improve retention and student success efforts, it was important for us to make meaningful connections. We looked at data, we created campus-wide committees, we formed collaborations with our students to learn more about best practices, and importantly, we simply asked our students as to how we could better serve them. Recently, Kilgore College enhanced the early alert system, which now allows faculty, staff, and administrators to submit alerts for students. The early alert system has allowed individuals throughout the institution to make meaningful connections with struggling and at-risk students. Mentoring and other supportive programs, see the above list, provides the channel for guidance and encouragement. The benefits of offering these various services increases retention and success efforts. The mentoring allows relationship building that encourages a natural element that promotes change and allows the shaping of students' developments. Likewise, academic coaching can influence character and impact current life beyond academics. The services of childcare, gas assistance, and textbook lending provide the supplemental financial support for CTE students. Moreover, the embedded advising allows students to engage in meaningful conversations about program and degree requirements. Likewise, while providing a nurturing and caring support system, the empowerment sessions and counseling sessions assist students in the development of coping skills, study skills, and more. Enhanced support services, that the enhancements should be supported by data and feedback from your students. Each semester, we ask students to complete surveys and we conduct mid-semester evaluations to learn more as to how we can better serve our students. We provide radical customer services. Again, I really want to give credit to Ebony here because this is her institution, and when she talks about this, I can't tell you how much she just glows and how much you can feel how much this is a part of her institution. At Kilgore College, they embrace the fact that students are our customers and strive to treat each student as if he or she is our customer, and in fact, our only customer. We think of ways to create radical customer service and present these ideas to key administrators so that radical customer service is embedded in the culture of our institution. Again, I want to tell you, and I want to apologize. Unfortunately, we all sometimes deal with technical difficulties. Ebony has been a very, very valuable portion of our webinar team, and when we were using the software, we've had a few technical difficulties. That being said, we'll move on, and I want to finalize a few things for you. As we have alluded to you earlier, the last 3 years, we started with determining promising best practices. We originally were seeking 10 best practices, but based on our eligibility factors, only a few institutions were able to submit ideas. You may have picked up on some of those ideas during the presentation, but we want to share with you the list we want to share the list with you here and also tell you they're accessible online, or you can retrieve them through the document setting in this webinar. If you click on handouts, you will see both handouts there. Additionally, there's a catalog of performance improvement plan ideas that were loaded into the documents, but I want to highlight 2 of those ideas which concentrate on identifying, understanding, and eliminating the barriers that cause students to leave and not retain at your institution. I would like to end with 2 poll questions. Please share with us if you think your Perkins voice and concerns are recognized on your campus. We have about 67% of our audience that has participated so far. I'll wait a couple more seconds. In sharing with you, you'll see that 25% of y'all strongly agree, 42% agree, and 33% strongly disagree. There are some time periods where some of us are working in isolation, or some of us, especially if you're new, are trying to figure out how things work. But that might be something that gets discussed even further. Also, please take a second and tell us what you found to be most valuable about this webinar.
We're at 59% of people have voted at this time. Ooh, it jumped. Okay, 65% of you have voted. All right, let's go ahead and close it out. So this is Leisha again, and I would like to thank all of you for joining us today. We'd like to end this webinar by giving thanks to the coordinating board for funding this project, and we'd like to offer our thanks to our webinar panelists, Dr. Catherine O'Brien, Ms. Michelle Freeman, Ms. Susan Cannon, Dr. Terry Walker, and Ms. Ebony Dennis. Thank you all so much for participating. We hope this webinar provided you with some valuable insight, information, or ideas to consider when it comes to 3P1. We hope that you will come back and join us on Thursday, April 26th for our webinar on 4P1. For those of you that have questions, if you want to stick around, use that little menu that's floating around your screen and ask us some questions.